morning, everyone. It's Jonathan Hamilton from Point Alliance here. I think we'll get started, and for those that join late, they can join in, and we'll record this and be posting it as well for everybody to review later. So thank you very much for joining us for our latest installment of Solutions for Success and our webinar series. Today, we are lucky enough to have Denis Molotov, SharePoint architect here at Point Alliance, doing a session on SharePoint 2019 and some of the latest features and great information to know for those that are considering upgrading their environments from 2010 or 2013 or even 2016. And some of these things may be familiar to those that may already be using SharePoint Online and those sorts of things. But without further ado, I will turn it over to Denis, and he will blow your mind for the next 30 minutes.
Thank you, John. Hope my presentation will start. Thank you for joining the webinar. My name is Denis Molotov, and I work as a SharePoint architect at Point Alliance. Thank you for joining, and today we are going to talk about what's new in SharePoint 2019. SharePoint 2019 was released only 3 months ago, and there are quite a few things that got deprecated. Deprecated technology means that it is still supported. You can still use it, but Microsoft has no plans of adding any new features to that. In case of InfoPath and SharePoint Designer, these two products will still survive until 2026. So you'll have at least 6 or 7 years to use them. They still work perfectly fine, even though it might not be the recommended option by Microsoft. Other technologies like Access Services, Newsfeed on my site, Groups in Client, Machine Translation, and Performance Point are also deprecated. What about features that got removed? So we no longer can use sandbox solutions in SharePoint 2019 that have any sort of C# or visual-based assemblies. Sandbox solutions still are supported as declarative ones, but if you have any sort of code in it, that will be actively blocked by SharePoint 2019, and this is the first on-premises version that enforces this block. SharePoint Online already introduced this block about 2 years ago, so this is no surprise to many clients. Multi-tenancy feature was first introduced in SharePoint 2010, and it allowed multiple organizations to have their own personal tenant within the same SharePoint farm, and thus saving hosting costs. So this feature, starting from 2019, is completely removed. Another not very important feature, PowerPoint Gallery, it got removed, but it's just a document library that used Silverlight for rendering. Power Pivot is still there, and it still can be used in SharePoint 2019. SharePoint 2016 was, in my opinion, one of the least popular SharePoint on-premises versions. However, SharePoint 2019 has 2 main game-changer features, in my opinion. Number one is actually modern mobile-friendly UI. It's the first time in history when SharePoint on-premises has mobile-friendly, responsive design out of the box. The second feature, hybrid integration, was already there for quite a few years, starting from SharePoint 2013, but the good thing is that it got a lot easier to set up. SharePoint Central Administration got a new link to set up that hybrid feature. In the past, we only had one wizard in the central administration website. Now we have two. And if you click on the second option, it will then load an executable file. If you run it on one of the SharePoint servers, you will be able to go through the hybrid configuration wizard. This is almost identical in terms of user interface to the one that you use to set up hybrid Exchange on-premises, Exchange Online configuration. So SharePoint now has the same wizard, or at least very similar looking one. It asks you about a bunch of questions when you run it. What type of hybrid environment you want? Do you want to set up hybrid search or hybrid sites or self-service site creation? It will warn you about things that you haven't set up yet. It will guide you through the whole process. And this is a huge improvement in comparison to what was in SharePoint 2013 and 16. I want to dispel one of the most popular myths I heard from different people, is that SharePoint 2016 somehow had or has some modern UI. This is not the case. Even if you install the feature pack 2, that supposedly had to have some modern features. And many people assumed and still assume that updates introduced modern pages, modern web parts. That is not the case. In fact, SharePoint 2019 is the first version on premises that introduced that modern user interface. So if you did not find any reason to upgrade to SharePoint 2016 because it had not enough features, SharePoint 2019 should hopefully keep the scale towards making that decision because of that modern UI feature. On this slide, you can see the same document library. Both of these screenshots are from SharePoint 2019. It's the same document library. It just displayed on the left using classic view, and on the right it is using the modern UI. So one of the new modern UI features is lists and libraries. Let me show you the demo. This is the modern SharePoint 2019 list. One of the features that I really like is that you can resize the columns. Finally, they are dynamic. In case you cannot see some text, you can always increase the size dynamically. All features like sorting is still there. However, it got some improvements. For example, if you pay close attention to sorting by different column types, you see if it's a number, it says we can sort from smaller to larger or larger to smaller. If it's a text, it says A to Z. If it's a date, it says older to newer. So that's a lot more user-friendly than before. Also, you can group by any column here without going to a different SharePoint screen and setting up additional settings. You can do all of it right from here. For example, I can group the view by expert fill, group by expert, and without a page refresh, I already have it working. If I like how it looks, I can save the changes to the view and say, yes, please overwrite it or create a new one. And this is a lot more user-friendly than before. One of the features that I also really like, if you click on one of the items, I can check details of that item by clicking on Details panel. I can see who has access to this particular item. I can modify any fields on the fly, just like that. And it's already saved to SharePoint. No need to go to a totally different form and save and go back. Some people might not like it, and they would say, let me modify the entire form first before I want to save anything. If you want to do that, it's still possible. Just click on the Edit All link, and then you can modify multiple fields before they're saved. And once you are satisfied with the results, you just save it. And yet again, it will update it right away without any postbacks and screen refreshing. Also, if you scroll all the way down in the pane, you can see the history of activities against that particular list item. And every list item has its own history. Who modified that item, maybe when it was created, and so on and so forth. Very useful. Another nice thing is that there is a filter for the lists and libraries. You can filter by date, and it's also dynamic. No page refreshes needed. You can combine multiple filters easily by doing one at a time. And notice every time I add one more filter, the breadcrumbs panel gets more and more data in it. So why is it useful? I can go back in time by kind of using the breadcrumbs and going back to the previous option. So this is really useful in my opinion, and I really love this feature. You can also easily add new columns right from here. No need to go to a separate screen. For example, I can add a new yes/no field, call it whatever, great, then default value no, save, and it's already there. No post back at all. And if I have a lot of items that need that value applied, I can select multiple list items. And then in the panel, I can use bulk update to say all of these items should have that property saved. And just like that, all of these got like my new column item updated, my new column value updated. So that is just a huge game changer in my opinion. It's very user-friendly, very fast. I can keep working on one screen without losing my train of thought, going back and forth from one page to another. There is also a way to do bulk, like there's an old feature for quick editing. It doesn't show up because I have a grid grouped by a field. But if I didn't have a grouped by a view, then I would easily be able to click a button saying quick edit. But in fact, all this is just an iframe that uses the old SharePoint 2010, 2013 quick edit grid view. So there is nothing really new there to show you. Yet another interesting feature is column formatting. Let's try that out. For the skill column, I can display charts, okay, bar charts instead of just a number. I can go to column settings, format this column, and here I can insert a JSON file basically and preview it right from here, and it will display the new style right away. I have a prepared script that makes the column look a bit different. I'm going to steal it and just paste here. And that's it. That just made my column look a lot better. And this is almost no effort. And it will save if I refresh the page. It stays there because it's part of the column settings. One of the maybe frustrating things with that feature is that SharePoint Online will carry that format on all pages if you add a list web part, for example, on the home page. But SharePoint 2019 does not have that feature yet. If we add that list on the page, you will see that, well, it doesn't show the skill column, but the point is that it will not show formatted styles yet. I think it will come maybe in a month or 2 or 3, but it's not there yet. So these were modern lists. What about modern libraries? Modern libraries have quite a bit of functionality from the old SharePoint view, but it also has a few new features. One of them is you can pin a document. Maybe that one is already pinned. How about this one? Pin to the top. And that document, or any documents I want, will be right at the top. If I want to reorder them, I can still do that. Can say move that pinned item to the left and to the right. And these are the most prominent documents you want people to see right away. Also, you can do all the operations I showed you in the lists. You can do bulk updates. You can add new columns, add new views right away, right from here. You have nice filters, maybe slightly nicer than in SharePoint lists. You can filter by types, show only Word and PowerPoint documents. And this is all dynamic. And if you like the filter, you can also save it with a different name. On the pane on the right side, you can also see who has access to the document. You can have extra information. If you scroll all the way to the down, you can have extra information about the document. If it's a picture, it might show you the dimensions. If it's a Word document, it will show you some extra information about that sort of document. Another thing that was a little bit frustrating to me is that SharePoint Online has a nice feature of downloading multiple documents you selected as a single zip archive. In SharePoint 2019, you still don't have that. You can only download one document at a time. So if you were looking forward to having that, that is unfortunately not there yet. You can always go back to the classic SharePoint list view in case you are missing some functionality. For example, for whatever reason, if you want to use Open with Internet Explorer button, you should go back to the classic view. And maybe a few other things like modifying forms using SharePoint Designer and so on and so forth. It is still there, but modern view is quite features rich, and you will probably find yourself using it more and more if you have a choice. You can switch back and forth from classic and modern view. If you are an administrator, you can control that behavior, and you could say these lists should display only as modern or only as classic. If you want it to be controlled on the site level, you can also do it with PowerShell. It is not a problem. So these were modern lists and libraries. Let's go through the modern pages. This is an example of a typical modern page. I can modify it by clicking an edit button. Let's see what features it has. If I want to edit a new web part, it has some search here. Although it might not be very useful if you have only a handful of web parts here. You can expand it to see the full list. Default list of web parts is not that big. If you recall SharePoint 2013, 10, 16, and so on, it had a lot more web parts. However, not a lot of these web parts were used anyway. One of the most useful web parts are like text and images and so on. It is in the features category. For example, if I want to add a text, I can say, hello, Toronto. The styling feature is fairly limited, but it is for the reason is that it needs to comply with the overall theme of the page. So you are not really like welcome to modify the colors too much because it will look out of tune from the entire page style. However, there are some settings that you can still tweak. For example, colors. The list of colors, as you can see, is limited because of the theme applied. You can you can change the font size, font styles, but you cannot. The number of styling options is a lot. Like it's much more limited in comparison with SharePoint, the classic user interface. Another useful web part is embedding all sorts of external or internal SharePoint links, like videos or maybe iframes. For example, if we want to embed a YouTube video, we can grab a link and just paste it here. And it will add it just like that. There are a few other useful web parts, like adding lists or document libraries. And there you go. The number of settings for modern web parts so far is fairly limited. You cannot modify everything like you used to be able to do in SharePoint classic pages. But for the most part, it fits the purpose, and it's, in my opinion, usually good enough. It has the most important features right there. In modern pages, you do not really have or need page layouts any longer. This is because every page is so flexible. You can change layout on the fly and combine all sorts of different layouts you want. In SharePoint 2010, 13, and so on, we had to create multiple page layouts for different purposes. Now it might not be necessary because we can just modify existing page to have like 3 columns first, then 2 columns, and so on and so forth. You don't have to think ahead of time, thinking how many columns would I need. Of course, new modern page layouts are also more limited because you cannot add fields or advanced customizations without using SharePoint framework. But the out-of-the-box functionality is quite rich, and it's right there. Modern pages are also responsive. It means that it will look great on a mobile device without you having to, without you having to think about it. If you use just your laptop or a desktop to create a page, you can rest assured that it will look good on a mobile device, say an iPhone X. So I didn't have to plan mobile support or anything like that. I just realized that, okay, what if I need this page to be opened from a phone, and it's right there and it works. It is, again, the first SharePoint on-premises version that has that feature out of the box. None of the previous SharePoint versions had any sort of responsive design whatsoever. So this is one of the main reasons you would probably want to upgrade your SharePoint on-premises environment. Another nice feature in SharePoint is the new modern homepage. It can be accessed by clicking this link. And it has a few features that I really like. It has SharePoint search right here. It remembers which things you clicked or worked with, so you might not even need to type anything. It has an ability to create new websites. It aggregates all sorts of information from multiple websites on a single page. It's the websites that you follow or had worked in the past. You can also create company-wide featured links. It's only available for the administrators to modify. All other users will just see it in read-only mode. And one of my most favorite features in SharePoint 2019 is the ability to create websites really fast. And just have a look how quickly it will work. If I click finish, it will take only a couple of seconds to create an entire website. This is just a revolution. SharePoint on premises took a very long time in the past to create an entire site collection. And again, it's not a subsite, it's an entire site collection. And SharePoint on premises, the first version, 2019 is the first version in which it happened so fast. We're running out of time, so we have to wrap up. If you have a list of questions, I could answer them.
Yeah, we had one question earlier. Can we change column width from view when you were doing the view list?
I think we can change it by using format capability using JSON, but I do not think you can do it using settings. I'm not aware of that feature.
If anybody has any other questions, we've got a minute or two to address those. Otherwise, you are more than welcome to follow up with Dennis or someone else here at Point Alliance with any follow-on questions. But we'll leave it open for sort of 60 seconds or so and see if anybody online has any questions before we wrap this up. Dennis, thank you very much. That was great. I think those, depending on, again, what they have in place today, probably saw some very new and exciting features, and again, the modern design and the responsive design and things like that. So for those that are still running SharePoint 2010 or 2013, or even, as you said, 2016, when they were talking about responsive design, but perhaps really didn't deliver on it, that in 2019 now, there have been some very nice UI improvements. So thank you for that, and thank you everybody again for joining us today. For those that didn't catch the whole thing, we will be posting this up on our website and sending everybody email links to that. So Dennis, thank you.
Thank you very much, and goodbye.